Welcome back, guys. I trust you've been staying safe. Marvel Universe actor Jonathan Majors has been found guilty of assault and harassment just some few hours ago. The verdict was reached by a 6-person jury after over 4 hours of deliberation spread across 3 days. And per this, Jonathan Majors is set to be sentenced on the 6th of February 2024. So, this is a major breakthrough in this case. Don't forget, the case has been traveling for some months now, where Jonathan Majors has been accused by his ex-girlfriend, Jabari, of perpetrating these atrocities against her. Now, this verdict was reached by a 6-person jury after roughly over 4 hours of deliberation across 3 days. And appearing in court, Jonathan Majors was actually wearing a grey suit and black dress shirt tie, and he stood with his attorneys as the verdict was read. And this was also in the company of his family members and his girlfriend, Megan Good, who stood behind him. So, although the charges are a misdemeanor and a violation and carry a sentence of up to 1 year in prison, I think the bigger damage here is not about the sentencing per se, but about his reputation and his career. This is a very delicate issue on the life and being, integrity, and persona of Jonathan Majors, first as a person, second as a man, and third as an actor and businessman. And I think that the days ahead are going to be very rough, depending on how these charges and this guilty verdict plays out with regards to other areas of his life. Now, on other 2 charges, he was found not guilty of intentional assault in the 3rd degree and also not guilty of aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree. So, in a statement that was made by his attorney after the verdict, his attorney by name Priya Chaudhry said, and I'm quoting, that Jonathan Majors is looking forward to fully clearing his name. So for me, when I read this, it gave me the impression that maybe Jonathan Majors may appeal the case. If you are familiar with anything about the legal dynamics, you realize that sometimes somebody can be found guilty, and then upon appeal, the person may be found innocent, and even sometimes the person who was found guilty and has now been found innocent upon appeal may also have his innocent verdict or not guilty verdict also been appealed by the other party who sued him, and then he will still be found guilty again. So these things can be a roller coaster ride. It can go up, it can go down. So for me, when someone is found guilty by a court, in as much as I don't doubt the competency of courts, I also believe that technicalities can overturn the verdict upon an appeal. So I tread cautiously and try not to label the person by the verdict, because it will be unfair if you do this and the verdict changes and you've already done reputational damage to the person. This is not being biased in any way, but this is me expressing myself by virtue of my little knowledge in legal process. And I think that we should wait and see how that statement his attorney made will play out. If he is to appeal, then I think there are interesting days ahead, because if he is to appeal and he's successful, and assuming he decides to claim a sort of malice was intended by his ex-girlfriend in pushing for all this, then we could also be looking at the possibility of a malicious prosecution being leveled against his ex-girlfriend. I don't know if it will get there. This is me just doing my analysis. But, shortly after the verdict was read, Marvel Studios dropped Jonathan Majors, who actually played the role of Khan the Conqueror from its upcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe films. And this was what I said earlier in my introduction. Already, the damage has started playing out. If you are familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, these are movies that have broken records and set new records that looks unsurmountable in the movie industry. And these are franchises that are going to rake in millions of dollars. So to be a player in such a franchise is a big deal for all actors. So for Jonathan Majors to have had the opportunity to play the role of Khan the Conqueror and now being dropped on the basis of this, it's very critical. And imagine how this would also play out if it turns out that he appeals and he wins. Could all this be factored in when he is to sue for damages if he decides to? So these are very critical times, and I think that there are interesting days ahead. I will personally be happy if he appeals, because part of their arguments is trying to be that Jabari, his ex-girlfriend, is playing the role of a bitter ex and is trying to level false claims against him. Now, there's the possibility that if he's successful in an appeal, he could go down the line of malicious prosecution, in which case he would have grounds to sue her for damages, and these damages might actually be huge, looking at the fact that already Marvel Studios has cut him, not to talk of his reputational dent that he is suffering, and even the trauma that his family and loved ones are also going through, as well as himself. So these are very interesting days ahead. But that is also not to say that once he appeals, he's going to be successful, because there is also that possibility that the charges were so strong, the evidence was so unsurmountable that he can't beat it even in an appeal. But let's wait and see how this case will go. Now, it is unclear what the next line of action will be. Obviously, he will face his sentence on the 6th of February, and he could face up to a year in prison. But like I said, that is going to be the lesser damage, because the bigger damage has already been done. And what is next for him in this case? Because when the sentencing was passed, he didn't really say much. He didn't say anything at all, actually. It was just his facial expressions which he put out, but that in itself didn't say much. And what is next for him? Marvel has dropped him. Up until this, Jonathan Majors was one of the hottest rising movie stars in Hollywood. But now, his stocks may actually be on the decline. But we have seen people who have been on the rise and have suffered setbacks, but have been able to surmount them and bounce back and become even bigger. Is Jonathan Majors going to be one of these people? Or is it going to be that this alleged ex's revenge is going to be the dynamite that blows up his career, his persona, and sends him off the deep end? In any way, how is his current girlfriend, Megan Good, also going to support him? Because she herself is also an actor. And Megan Good, if you know her, has been around for some time and is very experienced. There is also the bit about others also seeing a ray of light and opportunity in picking up people who are in such circumstances and using them to promote something great, which would in fact make them bigger than where they were when this issue came up. So it seems gloomy for Jonathan Majors, but also it could become an opportunity for him to bounce back from different angles. And I hope he has the strength to keep his head up high and his chin up. But if he's actually guilty too, I hope he learns from this and becomes a better person, because everybody deserves respect and to be treated with respect. So these are my 2 cents on this case. I was following it, but I wasn't sure of how this case was going to pan out, and I was just waiting to see how it plays out. But as it stands now, the verdict is in, unless an appeal is also on the table from the camp of Jonathan Majors. Because if you look at everything that he and his attorney are saying, it seems that even on the incident in question, Jabari left unscathed and is rather exaggerating, because she even went to enjoy herself at a nightclub, took sleeping pills and other things, used his credit card, came back to sleep, and yada yada yada. But hey, Like I said, we are waiting to see how it will play out after this verdict has also come out. I think that it might be too soon for Marvel to have made such a decision, because how would it also play out on their end if it turns out that Jonathan Majors maybe appeals and is also found not guilty and the decision is overturned? Will they call him back? So these are difficult situations, and I also respect the decision by Marvel because they are also a brand in themselves, and they will want to dissociate from some of these things by not associating with anybody caught in such things. But I think that sometimes, in as much as you are looking at yourself as a brand, you also have to look at the possibility that sometimes some things may not necessarily be as they are or as they appear to have been at a point in time. So there is room to give a little bit of benefit of the doubt and give things a little bit more time and see how they play out. Because assuming Jonathan Majors, after being found guilty, actually is sentenced and he doesn't appeal and accepts the sentence, I think that would bring finality to this. But in dropping him now, if he appeals and he wins, what happens? Food for thought. Subscribe to the channel if you are yet to do so. Turn on the post notifications. Let me hear your thoughts on this. What do you think? Subscribe. Stay safe. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. Peace.